The Browns left the stadium banged up after a 37-14 loss to the 6-0 Cardinals. Arizona doing it without their head coach Cliff Kingsbury. He was out with COVID. Baker Mayfield has completely torn a labrum in his non-throwing shoulder, missed parts of practice Tuesday, and if he cannot go, Case Keenum is expected to get the start. And after beginning of the year 3-1, the Browns sit at 500 after dropping their last two games. They host Denver on Thursday Night Football. I mean, just take a look at this list. Kevin Stefanski announcing on Tuesday the team already set to play without running back Kareem Hunt, placed on injured reserve Tuesday. And then starting running back Nick Chubb missed the team's Week 6 game due to a calf issue, also unavailable for Thursday night. All right, let's welcome in our NFL insider, Jason Canfora, with more on the Browns and other things in the NFL. Let's start with Cleveland. Jason, they're heading in the wrong direction. What else are you seeing there? What more can you tell us in addition to all the injuries they're suffering at the moment?
Well, it's hard to separate one from the other. If you looked at their injury report for this game, there's 20-some guys on it. If the guys on the injury report had to play the guys who are not on the injury report in a Browns inter-squad game, the injured guys, again, if they weren't injured, would beat the snot out of the guys who are perfectly healthy. It's not just one position group. It's not just a few injuries. I mean, we're talking about both running backs, both tackles, the quarterback, one of the best slot receivers in the NFL. Clowney's been on the injury report a lot lately. That's one of their pass rushers. Their best linebackers out, JOK. He's going to miss some time. And they've been beat up in the secondary as well. Clearly they have an identity, right? They have certain principles that they aspire to every week. It starts with grinding people out in the run game and utilizing a multiple tight end offense. So they're going to have to find a way to do that without either of their starting caliber running backs. And that's easier said than done, especially when you've got two tackles there who are road graders who are not expected to play on Thursday night. So they have to kind of stick with who they are to some degree. I would say, though, that Denver's pretty stout against the run. And this may have been a game where, in a perfect world, you open it up a little more. But Von Miller on the other side, two backup tackles, a quarterback playing in a harness who doesn't have his full sort of mobility and maneuverability and who has suffered two shoulder injuries already. It's just simply not ideal.
And normally you would lean on running backs, except they don't have their two big stars. Dearness Johnson will get his first career start at running back. 3 carries for 11 yards this season, although a very popular waiver wire pickup in fantasy. On Baker Mayfield's part, already off to a slow start before this injury, Jason was hoping to parlay that blistering second half to last season into perhaps a long-term deal. What's the latest on the Baker Mayfield front there?
Look, he was going to and has gambled on himself. And I think with Baker Mayfield, he's not the main thing. You know, you mentioned his draft class. He doesn't have historically significant seasons like Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. He hasn't had one of the greatest year-to-year jumps in NFL history like Josh Allen did. He's not asked to do what those guys do. I don't know that he's capable of doing what those guys do, which is fine. It's not a knock on him. It's a different scenario. But I think with him, it's more about being the steward of a playoff caliber team in Cleveland. And with all those injuries, now all of a sudden you're looking at Cleveland saying, well, this might not be the year where they're marching deep into January. You know, they did get the Steelers last year, and that's, you know, obviously a notch in their belt. But I think it's more about the team's success and the individual stuff. Look, he's not going to win MVPs. He's not going to run for 1,000 yards. He's not going to be the best downfield passer in the league. So he was never going to be a $40 million guy in the first place. And I think with him, it's going to be about how the season progresses. And does he look like the leader, the guy they think can help them get where they're going to go, albeit doing it a little bit differently and not asked to do quite as much as some of these other quarterbacks. So it makes it more difficult to gather evidence now because he's playing hurt and they're so hurt. But he was always going to play out this year and see where those chips landed, and that obviously remains the case.
All right, so we saw most recently Allen get that deal. We know Lamar Jackson certainly trending in that direction, and the Baker Mayfield situation, Jason laying that out for us there. Broncos also, in addition to the Browns, some trendy AFC tickets for those in the futures market, Jason. They're 3-3. after a 3-0 start. What are we seeing out of Denver in this slide here coming into this game?
Well, look, I think with Denver, you've got to go back to why they were 3-0. And they beat a miserable Jacksonville team. They caught the Jets at their lowest point. They caught the Giants really early in the year. The Giants haven't had a high point. So I think a lot of their defensive superiority through the first month of the season had to do with the first 3 teams they played. Now, they're stout against the run. You know, they basically held the Ravens under 100 yards. Remember, John Harbaugh got the extra play, and then we had the whole thing with Fangio. But they held that run game relatively in check. You know, with the Raiders, it was more about the pass. You know, the Chargers, we know what Herbert and that high-powered offense can do when it's humming along. But they're catching the Browns again, as we said, in a short week with a lot of injuries, a lot of key injuries to their offense, and they're not able to practice like they normally would. If Baker plays, you know that him getting through that game is far from guaranteed. So this is an interesting spot for them to kind of reclaim their season. Teddy Bridgewater, some of the metrics look pretty good. He's pushing the ball downfield more than you might expect. But they're also a little bit limited because they've suffered a lot of injuries that have really affected them, particularly on offense. But the offensive line, I would say, not looking as good as last year. But styles make fights, right? And it's not just who you play, it's when you play them. And they've got an obvious opportunity here, given what the Browns are dealing with.
Denver coming off a home loss to the Las Vegas Raiders, on the road for a short week in Cleveland. Our thanks to Jason La Canfora. Jason, certainly appreciate it as always. One more note on Teddy Bridgewater, dealing with a little bit of a foot injury. Vic Fangio saying that he thinks he's going to be able to play on Thursday. I want to remind you about the Pick Six podcast, talking about Russell Wilson's legacy, breaking down NFL divisional future bets. It is host Will Brinson and Brady Quinn time. Download and follow the latest pod today.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.